Greetings. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show. Here live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast alongside Todd Erzin and Aaron McIntyre. I am Steve Deace. We're brought to you by The Last Stand. Conference coming up June 5th and 6th in Englewood, Colorado, just outside of Denver. For The Last Stand Festival for 2 days, we're gathering Americans to fight for and once again believe in the foundational values that made our nation exceptional. I'll be there alongside Allie Beth Stuckey, Frank Turek, Seth Gruber, Rob McCoy, and others who aren't afraid to speak the truth in a time of moral confusion. You'll also get to see the world premiere of Seth Gruber's next film, also titled The Last Stand. So if you're tired of watching the culture drift, if you're tired of managed decline and people on the right with no plan to win, let alone the will to do so, this is your event. Go to thelaststand.com, thelaststand.com. Go there, use the promo code Steve for 15% off your ticket right now. Promo code Steve for 15% off your ticket at thelaststand.com, June 5th through the 6th in Colorado, thelaststand.com, promo code Steve. How important do I think this event is? Let me explain. I made a vow almost a decade ago now. After what I endured on the Ted Cruz debate team at the University of Colorado debate. Actually, I think it's Colorado University there. And after that being the third and what I vowed would be the final time I will ever brave Denver Airport TSA. How many times have you guys heard me complain about this over the years?
Enough.
I am going to do it. I'm going to break that vow because that's how important I believe. And dude, this is not even tongue in cheek. Ask these guys who travel with me how much to get everything done that I have to do and everything I'm involved in, how much maintaining routines and schedule matter to me.
Enough.
Like if we have a guest and I don't know, like 20 minutes before the show starts, if they're going to be on, what do I tell you to do?
Abort.
I mean, if we have to stay on schedule, right? To do all the stuff I do, the schedule must be maintained. Even on the road, the schedule must be maintained. And I just don't have time. I mean, the Denver TSA literally has a line that says self-harm line. When you've just given up all hope and you know you're never going to leave, you just go over there and just begin cutting in the corner, okay? And I just vowed I'm never doing this again, ever. And so I have turned down, I can't tell you, several opportunities to go back to that community. Nope, not doing it. But I think this conference and its message and this moment for our country are important enough that I am going to brave the Denver TSA to try to get home that weekend. And none of this was even mildly tongue-in-cheek. I have nightmares about the Denver TSA. All right? So promo code Steve for 15% off your ticket. If I can do it, you can. If eyes can change, yous can change. The great prophet Rocky Balboa once said. TheLastStand.com, promo code Steve. All right, coming up on today's show, we're going to do a full hour of Fake News or Not next hour with yours truly. I know because it was C-SPAN and Sunday morning, there weren't a lot of you that saw me appear there on Sunday morning, which, yes, before you ask, because several of you did, which I am not offended by at all. It's a good ask. The reason I said yes to this is I was able to do it before church started. So I was able to get out the door and go right to church after this got concluded. All right? So Sunday morning, I had a chance to appear on Washington Journal, Sunday edition on C-SPAN, taking calls from all over the country on various issues. And we're constantly, putting the microscope, aren't we, on other people and how they use their platform and their abilities to message, right? Okay.
And I enjoy it.
What's that?
And I enjoy it.
I know you enjoy that. Okay. I enjoy it too when it's other people. All right. But now I think it's only fair that the audience, every now and then, when I get a chance to do this for like more than 7 minutes on a panel, which I don't get asked to do very often anymore. I'm sure that's not a coincidence. But, or maybe we're just not that good at this. Anyway, that's why we're going to put me on Fake News or Not next hour. We're going to give you guys a chance to see my appearance on C-SPAN. Todd and Aaron are going to take copious notes and give this thing a thorough review coming up next hour. How did I do representing our worldview? And furthermore, how did the questions and callers do? And what do the questions and callers, keep in mind, this is supposed to be kind of the higher brow conversation in America, right? C-SPAN's Washington Journal. I even wore a collared shirt and a tie. How often do I do that? Not very often. I don't wear ties to church. I took it off before I went to church, in fact. Okay. So this is supposed to be the higher end level of discourse for what's left of American discourse, right? Because that's the rumor. So we'll see how that went.
Wait till the end.
All right. So
wait till the end.
So there's fake news or not for both me and also for those asking the questions coming up on the next hour of the show. At the bottom of this hour, one of my best buddies, Dr. Jeremiah Johnston from Prestonwood Baptist and the C.S. Lewis Society, Christian Thinkers Society. He's going to join us. Last time he was with us is when he went over to Davos during the World Economic Forum to present evidence for the gospel. Well, he's got a brand new book. It is out today called The Jesus Discoveries, 10 Historic Finds That Bring Us Face to Face with Jesus as an evidence for the resurrection and Easter in history. And we're going to go over some of those evidences with him in his new book coming up here at the bottom of the hour. But before we do, let's get to it with Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by the war will be very short. It's already won and will be over very soon. The messaging on the timeline on the war with Iran is all over the place from President Trump, likely strategically, as yesterday he told CBS he thinks the war is pretty much won, has said recently the war will go on as long as needed and use troops if needed, and yesterday also said this.
You've said the war is, quote, very complete, but your defense secretary says this is just the beginning. So which is it, and how long should Americans be prepared?
Well, I think
you
could say both.
But we took a little excursion because we felt we had to do that to get rid of some evil. And I think you'll see it's going to be a short-term excursion. How good is our military, right?
Secretary of War Pete Hegseth provided an operational update this morning.
As President Trump declared yesterday, we're crushing the enemy in an overwhelming display of technical skill and military force. We will not relent until the enemy is totally and decisively defeated. But we do so on our timeline and at our choosing. For example, today will be yet again our most intense day of strikes inside Iran. The most fighters, the most bombers, the most strikes. Intelligence more refined and better than ever. So that's on one hand. On the other hand, the last 24 hours have seen Iran fire the lowest number of missiles they've been capable of firing yet.
Back to Trump, who laid out in more detail why there was so much urgency hitting Iran this time around.
If we didn't knock out Midnight Hammer, if we didn't knock out their Iranian potential, if we didn't do that with Midnight Hammer, they would have had a nuclear weapon. They would have used it long before now. And at a minimum, Israel would have been annihilated. Even after we obliterated their key nuclear sites in Operation Midnight Hammer, they never negotiated into good faith. They still continued to say, we want to build nuclear. We want enrichment at levels that were unacceptable. And they even turned down an offer for unlimited free nuclear fuel forever for civilian purposes. We had people offering them free nuclear fuel. They weren't interested in that because they wanted to build a nuclear weapon.
Oil prices have continued to drop precipitously by some markers. Yesterday saw the largest drop in WTI crude in history, going from $116 a barrel to around $90, with more drops continuing this morning. Lindsey Graham update, who keeps tossing up heat check after heat check.
I'm calling on President Trump today. Join Israel to attack Hezbollah. Avenge the Marines. You just wait to see what comes in the next 2 weeks.
The next 2 weeks meaning what?
We're going to blow the hell out of these people. Here's what I want to say to Saudi Arabia tonight. I'm willing to do a mutual defense agreement with your country to give you protection in perpetuity. Under the agreement I've been pushing, and I hope we can continue to talk about, if you're attacked by Iran, we would go to war for you. I'm in Miami. You see this hat? Free Cuba. Stay tuned. Yep. The liberation of Cuba is upon us. It's just a matter of time now. You see this hat? Make Iran great. President Trump said the only way to make Iran great is for the people to take over. We're marching through the world. We're cleaning out the bad guys.
He is on a bender. We're now learning the two wannabe teenage jihadi terrorists who attempted but were unsuccessful at carrying out a terror attack in New York City over the weekend, both from Bucks County, Pennsylvania, Both their sets of parents immigrated legally from Afghanistan and Turkey, respectively. Ibrahim Qayyumi's parents, that's the 19-year-old suspect, lived in a home valued at over $2 million. Check out how this story was characterized on CNN. Quote, two Pennsylvania teenagers crossed into New York City Saturday morning for what could have been a normal day, enjoying the city during abnormally warm weather. But less than an hour later, their lives were drastically changed as the pair would be arrested for throwing homemade bombs during an anti-Muslim protest outside of Zoran Mamdani's home. Here's what we know so far. Now, those teenagers are being investigated on terrorism charges. And finally, this might be my favorite James Tallarico clip yet.
So I thought we'd talk about two things we're not supposed to talk about in polite company: religion and politics. It's been said before that when fascism comes to America, it'll be wrapped in the flag and carrying the cross.
For those of you listening, Tallarico made those comments in a building pretending to be a church, saying that fascism will come to America in a cross draped with flags. Standing behind him in that so-called church was a cross draped in rainbow jihad flags. And that's what happened while we were away.
You cannot make that stuff up. Unintentional self-parody is always the best. Aaron's Montage brought to you by our friends over at BIRCH Gold. Now think about this. 20 years ago, in 2006, $20,000 equaled roughly 33 ounces of gold at spot price. At today's prices, those 33 ounces would be worth $165,000. That's why smart Americans diversify a portion of their savings into precious metals. That's why you want to consider buying gold from our friends at BIRCH Gold Group, because for thousands of years, gold has been a storer of wealth and a hedger of protection against times like these. Even better, BIRCH Gold can help you to convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered retirement account in gold if you just text my name, Steve, to the number 989898, and you'll receive a free info kit on gold. No obligation, just useful information. Because with an A-plus rating from the Better Business Bureau and tens of thousands of happy customers, BIRCH Gold can help you diversify with gold and give you that peace of mind that you're looking for. Just get started by texting Steve to 989898. Again, text Steve to the number 989898. So as we examine what is happening right now with Operation Epic Fury, we are largely left with analyzing this on the basis of what is and what isn't being messaged. There's some objective factors that we could look at that would give us an idea of how things are going, right? We could look at, for example, there has been a dramatic reduction in missiles fired by Iran as this has gone on. That's an objective measure, right?
Sure.
But here's the thing, and maybe some of you have heard the phrase, the veritable fog of war, right? And we're in the midst of an internal spiritual war here in our country, and then even on our side right now. And so you can't always trust, in fact, you can't often trust the information you're getting, even from a lot of people on many sides, because a lot of it is the reinforcement of a narrative. Do you know how many Muslim apologist and Tucker Carlson guests, but I repeat myself, have been caught recently using AI images claiming that like Tel Aviv's been destroyed? Have you guys seen all these online? Okay. And these things,
yeah.
And none of this, of course, is true. All right. On the other hand, we've got Lindsey Graham out there. And two pieces of advice for my Israel and Jewish friends. Number one, never ever have Bibi Netanyahu counter-signal Tucker Carlson or an American political commentator ever again. Don't ever do that ever again. You're just feeding right into the narrative. He should not be inserting himself at that level into our domestic politics whatsoever. Don't do that. Number two, do not have Lindsey Graham and his fetishizing of war, and really just men in uniform in general. Do not have Lindsey Graham and his fevered, erotic, nocturnal dreams as the messaging all over national media for this. Holy cow, is that brutal.
Oh, and then let Aaron McIntyre go to work after Lindsay shows the hat collection. Aaron proceeds to show the democracy we're bringing, homegrown terrorists and the Talarico gospel. Cutting myself. I've only just begun, Steve. Only just begun.
The world is not as simple. Never has been, and it never will be. As Bibi Netanyahu and Israel, if it just went away, our enemies would as well. Nor is it as simple as Lindsey Graham. We'll die for Saudi Arabia. No, we won't. No, we won't. We won't do that. And so, for those of us who still care about truth, it's a dwindling number, but we're going to try to corner the market on you. Right? We're not saying that this is a growth market. We're just saying we're going to try to corner the market on that exists as it is. That's all.
What was it? Last week you said you always wanted to be called crafty. If you pull this off, you'll be crafty.
Yeah. There's some things that we could look at from a messaging standpoint and need to consider, because we just can't. We would objectively know if sadly more coffins with American flags were coming home. That would be a metric, right?
For sure.
That would be a bad metric. The fact that there a dwindling number of Iranian missiles being launched as this goes on, that is to some degree a good metric, right? Yeah. We also don't know how many of these are maybe being stored for should there, in anticipation of, escalated hostilities, the Iranian regime's version of a Battle of the Bulge, one last offensive and throw everything out, right? So there's a reason why the U.S. domestic airlines aren't instantly rebooking flights to Tel Aviv, even though we're down to dozens of missiles or less a day. It's clearly, if Iran had a massive, stock load of missiles left still, they would just be still shotting them all over the Middle East as they already were, right? Okay?
As likely as anything.
But that doesn't mean, though, they don't have still some level of devastating mass of maybe a level of weaponry they're just holding back in order for their own self-preservation. We don't know that, right? But we do know that they're firing fewer missiles than they were before. And one of the best ways, other than having unprotected sex with Lindsey Graham via the Grindr app, one of the best ways to shorten your lifespan is to be a member of the Iranian High Command. That we do know, right? Stop me, Mr. Ombudsman of the show, if I want to make sure we're going down the narrow road here of what we do and what we don't know, right?
You asked me to confirm something pretty darn dark right there, but I'll play along, yes.
Fair. Okay. So then, without a lot of those objective markers, we're often left at the messaging downstream here in Americana. We're often left with what is, and what more importantly at times isn't being messaged, to give us an idea of what's really going on with Epic Fury. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So a couple of things I want to point out from Aaron's montage along those lines. What you see there, that off-balanced messaging from Trump, that is Donald Trump, art of the deal incarnate right there. Okay? What you simultaneously saw Donald Trump do in the final 2 hours of the business clock yesterday. My opinion now. This is my opinion. You guys tell me if you agree or disagree. I think what you simultaneously saw him try to do was influence the markets to relax, particularly the oil markets to relax. Notice he announced there was going to be a news conference. Then he gave an interview to CBS News saying that, it's pretty much over. We've pretty much accomplished many of our objectives, right? And what did the markets immediately begin to do when he made that statement? Positively respond across the board, right?
Sure.
Okay. Markets close. Trump has his press conference, says, well, we're going to keep doing this as long as it takes to get the mission done. I don't think that the president's bipolar. I think this is classic Trumpian off-balance art of the deal. I think he is simultaneously trying to manipulate the markets from not going too cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs with all of this going on, because we all know markets, they love uncertainty. They love stuff like that, right? They crave it, right?
They do not.
They do not. So on one hand, he is attempting to manipulate them in his favor, in our favor, therefore, because he's our president. But then on the other hand, he is also sending a very clear message to our enemies. This will be done when it's done. And we will tell you when it is done. So he is trying to balance two interests: the projected strength of the United States, also a level of chaos in the markets. We were already behind the gun. We were already under the gun with this economy for this midterm election cycle anyway, right? So at this point, we are trying to do some triage here to make it so the hole is so big we couldn't possibly dig out of this thing over the next 6 months. And I think that's him trying to accomplish both of those things simultaneously. Gentlemen, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and well, when Trump, as I've said many, many times before, is the weather, I'm comfortable by now. I have a callous on how he goes about doing this. I mean, I understand the very practical reasons why the timing, as you laid out, the close of markets kind of timing, but also even if it didn't have anything to do with that, this is the kind of thing that Trump does anyways. And as it applies right now to this particular scenario, it's doing more good than it is harm, which is a place that he's going to go more often than not when domestically, vis-a-vis SAVE Act and other things, maybe not having as much luck with that rhetorical ball game.
Mm-hmm. Aaron, what do you think?
So I think I said this in the montage, and it's very much true, I believe, as I turn my in-studio monitor down. This is very much strategic. I think that's very much obvious. The reason why you have multiple people saying multiple things, and you can just trace this every single day. There are multiple messages that are being leaked, whether intentionally or unintentionally. If you're going to have the maximum success, whether that's just crippling Iran's regime, crippling their industrial output, maybe even regime change, you cannot telegraph on any level what your end game actually is.
Right.
You can't do that.
Right.
And you can trace every single day of this campaign in Iran. You can see different messages being mixed, being unmixed, getting back on message, off of message, back on message again. I think that's, I'm not trying to say 4D chess. This is just, I think, the operation that we're seeing here is that you do not want to telegraph to Tehran what your end game is when your timeline ends. That's why you saw leaks last week. Hey, it could be out to September. I think they're just trying to keep them off kilter.
I also think that some of the leaks you're seeing are for his own domestic political benefit within his own coalition. Stuff like, well, there's people, the leaks today, there are people telling the president, find an off-ramp. All right? Figure out what your off-ramp is going to be, and don't take on, any more water where this is concerned. Is it possible that those are treacherous leaks to try to pressure the president from the outside in? Sure. Is it also possible that those are placed leaks to kind of send a wink and a nod to some of your more America-only, America-firsters out there? Hey, your voice is still being heard in the White House. You still have some representation here. You see what I'm saying? I mean, it's, of course, either one is true. Would we know which one it is? We would not.
No.
We would not.
But he gets to your point about in foreign policy, he gets to be a CEO in a way that he just can't, and it's frustrating.
Yep.
I think that part of that is going on here. And so he's trying to gain as much leverage as possible in terms of all the optics of control, and maybe they parlay into the domestic realm.
I want to zero in on one comment the president made there in terms of his rationale for why he did this, because I fear that this one's going to be misconstrued. And even though it may not sound like it, if you stop and take a look at it from a broader perspective, you'll see why what he said was America first. One of the rationales for why he did this, the president said, is that that, quote, Israel would have been obliterated, end quote. That was in your montage, Aaron, that you cited. And again, this could be seized on from the Tucker Carlson, Ian Carroll, Marty Maid crowd, okay, out there, that this is the tail wagging the dog, that Trump is weak. And that Israel is really controlling the foreign policy of the United States of America. Now, can I sit here and say certainly that that is not the case? I cannot. I don't know. I don't know. But here's what I also know. And I do know. Whether you like it or not, in the minds of much of this world, to some degree, are Israel and America not intertwined from a perception standpoint as close allies and strategic partners?
Yeah.
Okay. What would be America first about allowing Israel to get obliterated? If we just stood by and said, you know what, that's your problem, not ours. We've got our own issues here at home. And tell me how that, what signal does that send to Beijing? What signal does that send to Moscow? What signal does that send to any of our other allies around the world, okay, in terms of where they stand? You see what I'm trying to say? Listen, I don't know. You know, I highly doubt Donald Trump is being led around by the nose. He's the schmuck here. I highly doubt that. But I don't know that for sure. Do we? Do we know that for sure?
No.
No. Here's what we do know for sure. Let's just say we woke up, we decided we weren't going to do anything. That's your problem. We've got enough of our problems. We woke up the next day and a nuclear device from Iran goes off in Tel Aviv. How does that benefit America's standing on any level whatsoever?
I fear the emails that you're going to get answering that.
Well, they're all.
question,
That's because
honest.
of course, they're all going to have an anti-Semitic premise. You know why? Because it's the only premise you have to my question to oppose it. Because if you looked at it from anything other than your particular hatred of Jewish people and their country, the answer to this one's pretty obvious, right? Like, let's just make this closer to home, right? Pretty obvious. You and I are close allies and have a strategic alliance. Doesn't mean we agree on everything. And leave poor Josh Pate the hell alone, okay? All right, we don't agree on everything. You're Catholic, for example. I'm not, right? But we're clearly strategic partners. Our interests align more times than not.
Is he writing letters now?
No, I'm just feeling sorry for the poor guy. And I like his podcast, all right? But this is a good example because we are clearly allies, close allies. We are clearly strategic partners, but our interests aren't completely and 100% irrevocably aligned, right?
Right.
We have differences of opinion, right?
Yes.
Okay. Nevertheless, because of that, in spite of that, how would this show be served if it turned out that you were harboring some deep, dark demons in your own personal life all these years, and I even maybe knew about it but didn't want to address it because I've got enough of my own problems? Well, how would that serve the overall interest and brand of this show?
Well, no.
It would not, right?
No.
All right. And so the answer to my question is pretty obvious. Now, you may doubt the intel, but then you'd have to doubt that President Trump is lying to you. Then you're welcome to do that, okay? But as a broad point, if you just set aside that you might hate Jews, help me understand how it keeps any enemies of America at bay by just doing nothing when arguably our closest and most strategic ally might have been in peril. How does that help the interest and projection of strength of the United States of America?
It doesn't.
It doesn't. And I think that's why you got to look at things a little bit more broadly than your particular narrative. And you've got to be listening and tuning into people right now capable of doing that, okay, for you. And there's not going to be a lot, I'm afraid. All right? That's just the era in which we live. And I don't even know how many people don't want that. I don't know how many people just don't have a narrative and they just want their belly rubbed and affirmed. I've just never been into that. That's never what we're going to do, okay? But it doesn't serve the interest of the United States of America at all to allow such a close, intimate ally to be, quote, obliterated, according to President Trump. Not saying his intel was right, but that rationale is rational. Whether the intel is right is a separate question and topic that we're not empowered to answer. We are empowered to answer whether the rationale is rational, and it's a pretty rational rationale. Agree or disagree?
I agree. I just they think they're living in Galatians and that we're fighting off the Judaizers.
Yes. Yeah. At the same time, they tell us it's a secular country that doesn't have any religion and aborts more kids and has more homos and everything else than we do. So, I mean, which is it, right? Yeah. Kind of hard to be those things simultaneously.
Yes.
I mean, the Judaizers at least had a point. Might have been a bad one, but they at least had a point. All right. We'll come back. Jeremiah Johnston's going to join us next.
The Steve Deace Show.
If you're struggling with too much chronic pain, it's probably because you have too much inflammation in your joints. And that's where Relief Factor comes in. It's the drug-free supplement created by doctors, though, who can prescribe drugs. But they were hoping to come up with something drug-free that wouldn't have side effects to it, that could actually be the long-term solution to your chronic pain. And that solution could be Relief Factor. Now, no guarantees. It's not an antidote. But over the years, over 1 million people have tried the 3-week quick start. I'm about to invite you to give a shot. And about 70% of them saw such great results in 3 weeks or less, they stuck with the product long term. So try the 3-week quick start. Why don't you see if you don't see a difference in your pain in 3 weeks or less, especially when it's just $20. That's it to find out. $20 to find out at relieffactor.com. Head over there today. That's relieffactor.com. You can also head over to your favorite bookstore, if you still have one of those in your city, or Amazon, and get my good man and good friend Jeremiah Johnston's new book, The Jesus Discoveries, 10 Historic Finds that bring us face-to-face with Jesus, evidence for the resurrection and Easter that are really from history and not from the Scriptures themselves, but confirm what's in the Scriptures. And we are joined now by my good man, Jeremiah. Good to see you, brother. How are you?
Steve, you're amazing. I'm so glad to be back on your program. Thanks for having me. There's a lot going on.
There is a lot going on, and I don't want to give the whole story away so that people still buy the book, but I definitely want to tease some of these evidences. I know you've got a couple with you right there that you want to show the audience. One of them you just got in the mail like literally just yesterday.
Bro, check this out. If you're watching Steve Deace right now, I mean, who else can bring the oldest, most priceless Bible that we have? I'm holding in my hand this 16-pound Codex Vaticanus. This Bible was produced in 330 AD. Think about it. The Council of Nicaea was 325. So this is probably the oldest, most priceless Bible we have. It's in Greek, has the Old and most of the New Testament inside of it, has the mountaintop passages of the resurrection of Jesus Christ, the Gospels, Paul's epistles. And yes, I just got it in the mail yesterday. And this is amazing because, again, it shows the great history of our faith. In 360 AD, Julian the Apostate wants to kill all the Christians and destroy all the Bibles. By the way, he went nuts 8 months later. It's kind of interesting. There were 4 emperors that really came against Christianity, and Steve, they did not end well, all 4 of them.
Right.
So it's interesting that we have any Bible manuscripts at all, but this is without a doubt the most priceless. And again, is evidence of the great scripture base of our faith, the text base of our faith, which is so unique to Christianity.
You've got another artifact you want to show us there, a nail that you have there with you in your studio. What's that?
So this is not a replica, Steve. I'm holding in my hand an actual crucifixion nail. This was unearthed in Judea. It's 1st century, and I know that because the shaft is square, and this was used to kill enemies of Rome. Well, what does the Bible tell us about the resurrection? We're only 26 days away from Easter. It says that Jesus he wasn't roped to a cross. He was nailed to the cross through his wrists, not through his palms. And it would have been a 6-inch iron spike like this. Now, Steve and your audience, do you guys notice that this is bent? Do you see that it's not completely straight? Can you see that from your angle? It's kind of bent. The Romans loved to impact as much and inflict as much torture as possible. This nail would have been used again and again and again on more Roman criminals. This was far more valuable than the bodies of the criminals. This is bent, Steve, because when the executioners were executing people like Jesus, they would minimize movement but want to maximize torment. Can you imagine being nailed to the cross and then having them adjust the nail while you were being crucified? So this shows us that the archaeological testimony of what we read of how Jesus was crucified smacks of complete authenticity.
Wow. All right, you sent over some of the other evidences in this book. I, on purpose, have not seen any of these yet because I want
to blow your mind.
I do. I want my mind to be blown. I want to react to these alongside the audience.
Okay.
So, Aaron, let's take these one at a time. All right, what's the very first one here, Aaron?
Okay. This was just discovered in 2008. And let me give the premise on this. My children challenged me. This is Ho Goestes Die Christu, Through Christ the Enchanter. This is what's called the Magician's Cup. Steve, I've never had a book before it even came out make global headlines. This discovery that I've covered was just discovered in 2008 by my friend Frank Baggio. He was doing archaeology with scuba diving, found this in Alexandria. The cup itself dates to the 1st century BC, but the writing dates to AD 50, and this is the first archaeological find that we have with the name of Jesus on it. Now you think, well, now wait a minute, what does it mean, through Christ the Enchanter? Well, remember your Gospels. Jesus is made famous first and foremost before his resurrection because he could heal diseases, he could exorcise demons, and no one was more effective than Jesus. So even all around the Mediterranean world, people realized, hey, if I insert this name Jesus, powerful things happen. How cool is that?
Wow. In other words, this is kind of almost an antiquity version almost of branding is kind of what you're
exactly.
Of what
Literally,
you're describing.
It's like, hey, if we insert this dude's name, things happen. And so in my book, The Jesus Discovery, here's the challenge my children gave me. So I have 2 teenagers, Steve, you know that. I have triplets. They said, Dad, we want you to tell us everything we can learn about Jesus, but you cannot use the Bible. Now, I love the Bible, okay? Obviously, I'm a Bible scholar, but here's the amazing thing about Jesus. Jesus is the most well-attested historical figure from late antiquity, and so I wrote a book to answer my kids' questions. We can have 10, there's actually more than that, but here are the 10 best discoveries that prove and corroborate the truth claims of Christianity, and I'm not using the Bible. Just like one of the chapters was the Jesus Cup. Who are they talking about? Who was this great miracle worker that they put his name literally on a cup because it was so powerful? It turns out that we can actually build 65 facts about the life, death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus before I ever crack open the Bible. And we have a great manuscript testimony. And here's the way I'd put it, Steve. If we can't believe that Jesus died and rose again based on the evidence, then please don't believe that Caesar crossed the Rubicon, because we have more evidence for the resurrection than we do for Caesar crossing the Rubicon.
All right, let's enter into evidence now. File number 2 here, Aaron. All right, Jeremiah,
Palatine
tell us what this is.
Graffito. If I took you to Rome and we went to the Palatine Hill, that was the high rent district. This was discovered in 1857. And what I want our audience to know, crucifixion, we're so used to speaking about it today. It was so offensive in the Roman mind. This death was only reserved for enemies of the state, for slaves, for criminals, for barbarians. So even if you were the worst Roman citizen, you were not crucified. So this is incised in the wall. This dates to the 2nd century. And let me read it. The inscriptions on the left, the drawings on the right. By the way, my book has all these pictures in it. My 9-year-old was looking at the pictures. So in Greek, incised, that's what we say when it's in a wall. It says Alexamenos sebete theon. And it's insulting Jesus. It shows that he has the head of a donkey. You can fill in the blank there. And he's dying. This is insulting the message of the gospel. And it's also insulting this Roman soldier who believes in Jesus. We know he believes in Jesus because he's holding up his hand worshiping Jesus. Alexamenos sebete theon. Alexamenos worships his God. Here's why this is important. This is the earliest image that we have of any crucifixion. I don't mean Jesus. I mean any crucifixion, and it evidences Jesus's crucifixion.
So we had branding and we had trolling. They were just like us. They were just like us.
It's amazing what you can learn from people that insult Jesus in the early years.
All right, number 3, Aaron. What's next here, Jeremiah? What's this?
Bro, I don't know if we've ever talked, and all the times I've been on your show, about the Shroud of Turin.
We did discuss it once.
I was a complete skeptic.
We did discuss it once, yes.
Okay, so this is all of the biblical correspondence. So this is a picture of the Shroud of Turin, and this is a crucified man. And finally, this is the first time I've ever written on the Shroud of Turin in my book, The Jesus Discoveries. This is all of the wound patterns, the side wound, the blood angles, and it all matches with a one-to-one correspondence with the resurrection and crucifixion narratives embedded in the gospel. It matches so much that my friend Bruno Barberis, and by the way, the irony of his name is not lost on me, Bruno Barberis. It kind of sounds like the man who was replaced by Jesus on the cross.
Yeah.
He says that he's a mathematician. When you look at all of this, there is a 1 in 200 billion chance it's anyone other than Jesus of Nazareth who is on the image of the crucified man of the shroud. Isn't that a helpful photo? So that's in the book as well. That just shows all of the different correspondences. Jesus is scourged 372 times, over 200 on the back. There is not a part of his body that was not scourged, including the pelvic region. We don't have the parallel sides because Jesus, when he resurrects, I want to make this clear, Steve, he literally resurrects through the shroud. The shroud is still laying there, and he's walking around the tomb. Remember, Jesus' resurrection body was so powerful, it defied human limitations. He could appear in rooms and disappear. When you read 1 Corinthians 15 and you see the capabilities of our body someday that we're going to have in Christ in the resurrection, they are amazing. And so the way I put it, if the Big Bang caused humanity to exist, let me tell you, the resurrection of Jesus was the big reversal that redeemed humanity. And this is, the power of this moment is 34,000 billion watts of energy traveling at 1/40th of a billionth of a second to believe that residue of that image, for lack of a better term, on this burial cloth.
Wow. That's incredible. All right, let's get to the next one, the fourth one. Aaron, what do you got? All right, Jeremiah, tell us about this one.
Okay, so this is, again, the picture on the left is what the shroud looks like today. It's in Turin. I actually took Glenn and Tanya Beck there. I showed them the actual shroud. We had a wonderful experience looking at the Shroud Museum. But the picture on the right is what Seconda Pia took in 1898. Photography is not invented till the 1800s. And when you take a picture, the image on the right, which looks like the negative, is actually the photo positive. And remarkable things stand out. You can actually see with so much more detail on the right the infliction of the wounds. You'll see no broken bones. You'll see the blood pattern. There's arterial and venous blood, meaning the blood is flowing in the direction that it should be flowing based on how Jesus was crucified. We actually have the back as well. You can see where he carried the patibulum. The one thing the Passion of the Christ did not get correct, he did not carry the whole cross. Jesus only carried the crossbeam called the patibulum, and so there's abrasions on his shoulder. The front of the beard, if you can look closely at that, Steve, and the audience, you'll see that it's plucked out. That doesn't mean, the Isaiah prophecy doesn't mean he's clean shaven. I want to really help find Christians with this. But you can see there's like this upside down V. They plucked out the front of his beard. You can see how painful that would have been.
Wow. All right. We've got a video that you want to narrate for us as well. Let's
this is an
that.
animation. This is beautiful. So we took just the data from the face of the crucified man of the shroud, and my friend Doug Powell, who's a graphic artist, did this amazingly in An Apologist, and this became the cover of my book. And we took the data from the shroud and the earliest image that we have of Jesus, the Pantocrator icon in St. Catherine's Monastery, and look at that. Isn't that a riveting thing? That's likely what Jesus looked like. And again, we took just the data from the shroud and the Christ Pantocrator icon. Now, Steve, I also have other artifacts. I've collected coins, and I have a coin from Julian II from the 700s. It's the first time that they put the picture of Jesus on a coin. And by the way, he was facing the Islamic conquest, so it was very bold of him to do this. And there are 200 points that match the face on the coin from the 600s with this face that you're looking at right now. Isn't that amazing?
It's almost as if to borrow a phrase from Josh McDowell, the Lord has left enough evidence that demands a verdict, right?
Yes.
None of us were alive to see it. All right. And so we have eyewitness testimonies, but none of those eyewitnesses are around to be cross-examined or things of that nature. We do have the confirmation of their testimonies by how they were all willing to suffer ignominious and terrible deaths on their own part for that testimony. Right. That's
right.
That's the best confirmation of their testimony we have. And then we have kind of what amounts to the antiquity version of forensic evidence. That's kind of what we've gone through here, as well as circumstantial evidence. And it's pretty overwhelming. Not enough maybe that if you 100%, no matter what, don't want to be convinced, maybe there's enough doubt you could still have, right? But it's so overwhelming that it does put the emphasis on the individual to then take a look at that evidence and make that decision. And you've got to come up there for Jeremiah. Then what is the counter explanation for all of these evidences? Even if you don't think it's 100% in our favor, then how in the world would you get to anything that would be a relevant ratio in with any other counter narrative to all of that? And that's really, I think, where the rubber meets the road. I'll give you the last word.
The burden of proof is on the skeptic because the evidence, the scales of evidence so lean in our favor. But I'll just remind you of this. Make sure that your heart is not hardened. The most dangerous place a person can be is when you stop seeking truth. Mm-hmm. Faith is not faith in blind nothingness. It is faith in evidence. Biblical faith is faith in the facts of the gospel, that Jesus died for our sins according to the scripture, that he was buried and that he rose again on the third day according to the scriptures, and everyone, Romans 10:9, who calls on the name of the Lord and believes in their heart that Jesus has been resurrected from the dead will be saved. And that's the whole point of the Jesus Discoveries. Steve, while I love your program, we've got to raise our intellectual game politically, socially, and certainly with our faith. And so thanks for having me on. I hope many people will get this book because this is going to arm you and equip you in crisp chapters with how we can evidence Jesus for our skeptical friends who are like, hey, don't open the Bible. What do we know about Jesus? Is there anything we can know about him outside the Bible? We can know more about him than the Caesars.
Excellent. It's called the Jesus Discoveries, 10 historic finds that bring us face to face with Jesus. I love the very first line here on the back cover. Jesus is not legend, he is Lord. I think that's an excellent summation of what this entire conversation has been about. And
the evidence bears it out. That's what's powerful about it.
Good to see you, my friend. Thank you.
Love you. Thanks for having me, Steve.
You bet. God bless you.
God bless you.
All right, out today, the Jesus Discoveries, 10 historic finds that bring us face to face with Jesus. We got about a minute or so. Gentlemen, your thoughts on that conversation?
Yeah, I mean, we have an incarnate faith. It is tactile. It's not just a memo. So it's really important to be reminded that that's one way we can connect with it. And a nice assist to Catholics. I appreciate it there from Jeremiah. I mean, the CODIS there, it was produced by the Catholic Church at the very time. I'm told by many people the church went apostate. So that's a nice, like, arms around our shoulders there. We're in this together. Thank you, Jeremiah. I love you, brother.
Actually, I think the church went apostate after that period, wasn't it, Aaron? It's a little bit after that.
Just a bit.
Shortly after Augustine, that's kind of when we think it went apostate.
Just a bit.
Anyway, your thoughts. Go ahead.
It's incredible. It's pretty incredible seeing this, the preponderance of the evidence, especially the older evidence. And I've heard a number of things, but, crossing the Rubicon versus the evidence for Christ. When you put it that way, it is screaming. History screams, like, right in your face. Do you not see? Do you not see? Jesus was, or this was the most intricate and impressive hoax ever pulled and ever will be pulled in the history of our species and this planet.
All right, when we come back, going to put myself under the microscope for fake news or not. Had a chance to talk to the nation on C-SPAN on Sunday. How did I do? You'll get a chance to see it for yourself, and then we will discuss next. All right, back here with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast, alongside Aaron McIntyre and Todders. And I'm Steve Deace. Let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox by emailing the show, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace Show on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Deace Show there, DEACE. And if you are a podcast listener, you can hit the subscribe button, or if you're on Apple iTunes, if you listen that way, hit follow. And that way you are locked in. Every time we drop one of these new episodes, it's right there in your podcast feed. And then we would also love it if you'd leave us a 5-star review. Tens of thousands of you have. We appreciate them all. And we'd appreciate yours if you've yet to do so here today. And we appreciate our friends at Raycon. spring is kind of sprung. It's not official yet, but I mean, it was 70-something degrees here yesterday. It's going to be 60-something degrees here today, right? You want to get out and about. You want to see that big yellow orb in the sky, get some fresh air, get mobile, agile, and hostile yet again. We'll do it with Raycon's Essential Open Earbuds, all right, because they're open ear. So you can listen to music or podcast while you're still hearing what's going on around you, all right? It's going to make being outside feel easier, more comfortable. The sound stays clear and balanced without feeling closed off from your surroundings. And right now, you can grab those for 20% off right now. All right, so you can use these for literally everything. Raycons, they're incredible. In fact, what's really incredible is if I ever get to hold on to them when they're sent to my house, because my kids have a tendency to pilfer them right away. And that's because Raycon, they have over 3 million customers for a reason. The sound quality is just as good as the way more expensive brands, but they're half the price, and they have a 30-day guarantee as well. So the Essential Open Earbuds, they're perfect for refreshing your routine here with the fresh air of spring. So go to buyraycon.com/Steve Open. Buyraycon.com/Steve Open. Buy Raycon, RAYCON, as in now. Buyraycon.com/Steve Open, and you go there and you'll get 20% off at buyraycon.com/Steve Open. All right, so this hour, we're going to do an entire hour of fake news or not. But we're going to put yours truly on the chopping block. All right? We're going to break down how I did over the weekend. I was given an entire half hour on my own. I was supposed to do this for an hour with some left-winger I'd never heard of the previous week, and then it got postponed because we launched a war. And they told me they'd call me back. I didn't know it was going to be the very next week. They called me back the very next week and then gave me my own spot. So I was able to just sit there for about 30 minutes or so, taking questions from Pedro Echeverria, who was the host, and then also from callers around the country. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to run this in real time. And Aaron, we're going to kind of mystery science theater this thing. All right. So Aaron, as the guy controlling the broadcast, you can break in anytime you want when you've got something you want to say or address. All right. Todd, you and
Fake news.
You can do that if you want. All right. Todd, you and I are going to say freeze it so Aaron knows to pause it. All right.
So you want me to leave your mics on?
Should we leave the mics on?
That's fine.
Yeah, we'll just leave them on. All right, leave the mics on. All right. And it can be the questions fake news, my answers fake news, or real news, whatever the commentary is. Fair?
Yeah.
All right, we're ready to go?
Hope so.
All right, let's kick this thing off. See how I did.
Washington Journal continues.
Joining us now, Steve Deace of Blaze.
All right, freeze it right there.
The Steve Deace.
What do you think of the shot? How's the shot look?
We need to fix your white balance.
Explain to the audience what that is.
I don't even know, but I know it makes it look more natural.
Okay.
Basically, you're on auto white balance right now, so the camera is trying to constantly figure out what temperature of light is hitting you, and it should just be 5600 Kelvin.
Okay.
Daylight.
All right. You can't really see it with the mic there, but I am wearing a tie. What do you think, Erzin? What do you think of the shot?
Maize and blue, total fake news.
All right, let's continue.
Show joining us to talk about issues in the news, domestically and internationally. Mr. Deace, thanks for giving us time on the program today.
You bet. Thank you guys for asking. Honor to do it.
Your audience, to what degree do they care about what's going on in Iran?
They care quite a bit. I think they care on multiple levels, Pedro. I think they care about what it means in terms of focus on domestic policy and how much we can multitask there, I should say. I think they care greatly about victory and how it projects strength across American strength across the globe. And then I think they care about how long it's going to take because of those other two matters as well. And I think everybody still has a little PTSD on our side over what happened with Iraq and Afghanistan. And I think you're seeing some of that in terms of the discourse on our side online. And last year, the president proved that it was possible to project American strength in the Middle East without getting bogged down in regime change. And now he's got to prove that we can do regime change without getting bogged down into a quagmire. And so that's kind of where we are right now.
When you see efforts that you saw on Capitol Hill with the Iran War Powers Resolution from Thomas Massie and other Republicans questioning why we're there and what are the long-term effects, what's the sympathy amongst those you talk to for those kind of viewpoints?
Well, I think that's kind of built into our overall coalition. You know, Congressman Massey is a great congressman, but he also is native to the Ron Paul wing, the libertarian wing of the party, the more iconoclastic wing of the party. So, you know, they're naturally skeptical of any military action to begin with. And frankly, I think that when you are as pro-military as we tend to be on the right, and as I tend to be, I'm a child of the 80s after all, I think it's good to have contrarians like that in there to ask you the questions maybe you don't want to answer and to make sure you don't become that which you hate, that you don't step on the rakes that we did in Iraq and Afghanistan in the previous era. But I think overall that's kind of baked into the cake of our coalition, that whenever we talk about a pronounced American military action, that you're going to see the libertarian wing, which is small but is significant and has some substantive things to say. I think that they're going to speak up and kind of put a check and balance on that. And I think that's just part of the overall healthy debate. And I think that's kind of the difference in whether you're kind of doing groupthink or you're a movement. If you're willing to at least listen to your contrarians, doesn't mean you have to do what they say, but you should at least be willing to listen to them.
All right, freeze it there.
To people all the time.
So C-SPAN, this was the clip that they chose to single out to promote this appearance. All right, so they promoted the totality of the appearance several times, but the singular clip that they took from this conversation was the one that you just watched right there, addressing Massey, the Libertarians, the War Powers vote in Congress, etc. Thoughts on them choosing that as the promo clip? Think it was just as simple as was the very first question, so it was an easy edit, or do you think it's significant of something else?
No, I think the Massey is obviously singled out by Trump. I mean, I really think this might just be metrics, things that get people to click on, things that they notice.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, listen, more than that, I noticed that it's maybe slightly tonally different than you hear on the show, because the format of this show, as you've already said, is different. But the consistency of the message in that entire clip, which is why I didn't even break in, it's what you've been doing every day, which I think speaks very highly to you. Steve isn't doing an act here and then doing a different act over there. I mean, there's a different audiences at times, but that message is what they would get from the Steve Deace Show on a regular basis, the one that we've had for, the last 2 weeks as this has been going on. So I really think that just had to do with nothing to do with Steve Deace. I think Massey tends to get some really interesting, juicy comments from Trump. People might watch this longer. We get more eyeballs because of that. That's my thinking.
Okay. I think there's been a long-standing feud between Massey and Trump, and I think they probably pick up on that, and that's probably why they clipped that clip.
So do you guys agree that's a valid question to ask me about?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What about making it the first thing to essentially ask me about?
Weird.
No, not when they find interesting conflict amongst conservatives as things that people... I hate it, but it's
no doubt.
It's what they think
yeah.
will get people to watch longer than 2 seconds, and then for them to get donor money. I mean, no, it's not weird at all.
All right, my answer then. And
what are your own personal observations over what
no,
you've seen
pause
over
it for
the
a second.
last
I'm
week
sorry. You guys' thoughts on how I answered that question then? What'd you think?
Oh, that's what I said. You answered it the same way you've been answering it for 2 weeks, which it's consistent. You're not doing political spin. You're doing political analysis, but you're not trying to gain any kind of fake high ground or be overly pessimistic, which many people are perpetually doing on the right now. You gave a very balanced analysis of what you think is actually happening, regardless of what your preference may or may not be.
Aaron, your thoughts?
I don't know. I don't trust CNN or Freudian slip, C-SPAN as much as any of the other networks. So I found it weird that the first thing that they wanted to ask you about specifically was division, but I guess that makes sense. The answer was basically, like Todd said, what you've been saying here. There's not much more to analyze than that.
All right, let's continue.
Oh, crud. I just messed up and pressed the wrong button. You got to talk for a little bit here.
All right. I think what you're going to see is at least I hope what you're going to see is I made a concerted effort not to fall into a narrative that may be disproven a little bit later on.
Yeah.
All right. That there are just too many things we don't know. We're not empowered to know. We're not empowered to know in advance. And I'm not here to sell a narrative. All the reservations I had about this 2 weeks ago, I still have. But I'm also Team America, and I want us to win. I also think every single member of the Iranian regime, assuming room temperature, makes the world a better place. Right? Okay. And I don't hate Jews. All right. So I still think all the issues of are we taking away from our focus on domestic priorities and our ability to win the midterms? Could we end up in a quagmire there? I still think all those questions I had before we launched this are all still there. They won't be answered until this is completed. At the same token, though, I don't have a narrative that I'm trying to affirm, so I'm fine rooting for America to be successful if this is the mission.
Yeah, if they had somebody on from Fox News, it would be very jingoistic. If they had Tucker on, it was like we're about to rape all their women and kill all their children.
Right.
Here, you're acknowledging that there's many different takes and perspectives right now, and you are allowing for the reality of all of those existing is out there. But there's also a third way of acknowledging that it's not as clean as either side makes it, or clean or messy as other side makes it.
All right, let's continue.
Anyway, amongst Republicans.
You talked about that PTSD kind of thing, and you talk about winning. What do you think winning looks like to you and your audience? What do they need to see as far as that's concerned?
Well, I think this is the great challenge here on our side, is the administration has defined winning as degrading Iran's military capabilities to the point that it can no longer be a danger to Americans, and it has been. Iran has killed hundreds of Americans or been involved in numerous terrorist plots going back to the hostage crisis of 1979 when I was a little kid. Now, here's the thing, though. What exactly does that mean? We've already seen a lessening of Iran's missile launch capability at Israel as the first week of this conflict has worn on. All right, is that because they're hiding? Some is anticipating a ground invasion. Is that because they've been degraded at that point? Is that because their military leadership has been so degraded, their chain of command is disrupted? It's probably a little bit of all of those things, right? And so I think that's the big thing. What does that actually look like? Because at the same time, the president has called for regime change, but called for it amongst the Iranian people. About a month ago, we had consistent night by night, tens of thousands of Iranians, brave Iranians in the street, willing to take on, with protests, the Revolutionary Guard there in Iran, right? And the president has urged them for now to kind of shelter in place and hunker down until the brunt of this operation is over. Is there a point where he will then call them out into the streets? I think those are questions that still have to remain answered. And what I would say is that the president's foreign policy chops and capabilities have been the best part of his 2 terms. He's brought unprecedented peace and stability to the Middle East. We have over 2,000 Jews working full-time in the nation of Saudi Arabia right now. That was unthinkable even a decade ago. You had the Abrahamic Accords. Last year when Iran launched missiles at Israel in retaliation for Midnight Hammer, you saw several Arab states like Saudi Arabia, like Jordan, launch countermeasures against Iran as part of that effort. So I think what the president understands is that there's a large coalition of Arab states, maybe for different reasons than Israel, Pedro, but there's a large coalition of Arab states that would love the Iranian regime to be at least severely muted, if not outright displaced. And so I think that the president has parlayed that into unprecedented diversity of coalition here and has a broad mandate to successfully execute this operation. And so far, he has.
How many C-SPAN viewers have heard that type of analysis?
That is a good question. I'm going to guess it's a small number.
How many C-SPAN viewers? Do you think Pedro himself has even heard, hey, there's a large cadre of Gulf state neighbors who hate Iran's guts? Do you think he's ever heard that before? I mean, I'm not trying to diminish his IQ or anything, but it's not widely known.
Are you saying the answer I gave is just outside of the widely consume talking points on either side of this that most Americans are fed.
Generally.
Yeah.
But again, it's also, if people turned onto our show, that's what they've heard. There's no new messaging there, which is
for really the last several years, in fact.
Which is again really, really important. You can simultaneously be America first, while also, and quite frankly, I don't think you can truly be anything that resembles an accurate America first, and have no idea what's actually going on over there, and just rely on straw men and stereotypes. And the fact that you bring out the gospel there implicitly, love your neighbors, you love yourself. You're talking about brave Iranians. You're talking about Saudi Arabians in terms of being nuanced and having different opinions of the world as it is. I just think it's grown-up talk.
As we go on, we'll see if we get grown-up questions in response to that grown-up talk.
Till the end.
All right. You good, Aaron?
Yeah. Steve Deace joining us of the Steve Deace Show. And if you want to ask him questions, 202-748-8000 for Democrats, 202-748-8001 for Republicans and Independents, 202-748-8002. You can text us at 202-748-8003. Mr. Deace, how do you describe your show to other people?
I would say principled conservatism with a snarky twist. I'm a big faith guy, and so as much as we can, we try to use the filter of that perspective, pardon me, into how we analyze daily events. So I think that that maybe gives our show maybe a bit of a unique flavor, and we're in a period of time now, Pedro, as you know, that there is a great yearning for that kind of content across the spectrum, that people are wondering, hey, what do some of those timeless truths and old traditions have to say about the era in which we live? And so we try to hearken back to those things consistently on our show.
And how
pause it for a second.
Yeah, I think
Go ahead.
It's because the questions were so adult, the answers were so adult, like I've been saying, that I don't. You said you've talked with that guy before. So,
he's had me on before over the years.
And he's a pro. He knows what he's doing. I think that was filler right there. I think he expected way more red meat, off the rails stuff, and so the follow up would win something about that. I think it's like, I can't believe this is just like adults having a sober-minded conversation. I'm used to people lighting their hair on fire, whether I'm talking to people.
Listen, I can do that, by the way. I'm fine. I like lighting my hair on fire. I just thought this should be a higher brow conversation.
And you can, and I expected you would later on. But really, I think he really just says, I think I just need to ask a question to recalibrate where I'm going with this next. Tell me who you are, Steve Deace, because it was just, that's not what you get from online or cable talk these days. It is this sound-bited, fake fighting nonsense. And
they don't want analysis, they want sides. Remember, that was the last time CNN called to book me. Was I think it was in 2017, 2018 was the last time they tried to book me for a show. And then their producer called back to cancel, and he flat out told me, listen, at this point we're not looking for analysis, we're looking for sides. Just told me that flat out. That's what you're describing.
Yeah, and even though he knows you enough, I think he, I really think he had to try to throw some chum out in the water. Can you remind us who you are again, Steve? Because you know that I know that you know. And nope, that's not, and again, we do that on the show depending on the topic. There's Lindsey Graham and there's all that stuff. But we do this every single day on this topic and many other topics. It's about the truth. We really want it. The question is, do you?
Let's continue.
About your audience moving on and other things helping them do that. One of the things that occurs now that Mark Wayne Mullen, the senator, could become the next Department of Homeland Security. Talk about those events. What was your reaction when you saw those happening?
Well, I think that the first warning shot across Christine Ohm's bow was fired in Minneapolis when essentially the president sent Tom Homan in and said, all right, we have to have an adult actually running this thing. This has gone on for too long. And I think that in the first term, the president struggled.
Pause. This is where it turns a little bit more into and this guy's like, all right.
It's not going to be NPR.
Yeah. No.
NPR with Bible verses.
Now there's going to be a corpse somewhere. We're going to get it. And
we did book Steve Deace after all. Someone's got to get bodied here. Steve, what are we doing for 30 minutes? What happened to you? Yes.
Now, you didn't have to go searching for this. I mean, This is very low-hanging fruit. But nonetheless, I think this is more what he expected in the first answer.
He asked me very serious questions, and so I gave him very serious answers. When he asked me about someone who's frankly not a very serious person, that's when I gave a less serious answer in response.
But what they normally get is very serious questions getting very unserious answers. So,
Correct.
Yeah.
Times as an outsider to assemble a cabinet of people that were both people he could trust and not swamp rats, but also capable at the same time. And we saw some of that revolving door. And I think the president came in way more prepared from a personnel standpoint this time. But if in his first term, the president at times, I think, was too quick, to let people go. So Anthony Scaramucci was there for a week, for example. Omarosa, we hardly knew ye. Okay. I think in this case, the president maybe has hung on too much, being sensitive to that NARA. Kristi Noem probably should have been let go a long time ago. A lot of conservatives like myself think that Pam Bondi should have been let go a long time ago. And the confluence of events, what happened in the messaging issues and the lack of leadership projected in Minneapolis was one. I think her testimony was another. The stories that have come out about the use of funds and whatever the nature of her relationship with Corey Lewandowski is another. And I just think at that point, the one thing that you can't ever do, and I've been on presidential campaigns and made this mistake. All right. You can't ever be bigger than the candidate or the leader. You can't make yourself more of a story than they are. And Kristi Noem was doing that, and the president was right to remove her.
Was it when it comes
to
this
was all, especially in the background, why they choose they wanted you to do to Massey earlier on what you did end up bringing up with Pam Bondi, adding on. Oh, and another thing, here's another body that over there at C-SPAN. They're like, yeah, lighten up the cigarettes. That's the stuff we wanted right there. And see, and you should have points for that. Points for the snarky Marasa. Negative points for not bringing up dental work or dogs that have been shot before. Missed opportunities.
The dental work should have been brought up. Aaron, your thought on that exchange there?
Quite interesting. It's, again, no different than anything that we've talked about on this program. Again, I don't know. I don't know the average audience of C-SPAN, what they're expecting from somebody like you, whether they've ever heard you before, how much background they have of you. Pedro obviously knows who you are. So again, I would just like to be a fly on the wall, maybe in the control room of C-SPAN, if they're even paying attention at all, to see kind of what their reactions
Who told me we were booking adults on here? Is that what you're saying?
Basically.
All right, let's continue.
Minneapolis, was it the two shooting deaths that really was a key factor? Was it reaction to that? How would you paint that picture?
I would say the answer to your question is yes. And that she did, on the right, we don't have really high regard for the messaging capabilities of Tim Walz. Okay, so I think when you're getting outflanked in the public sphere by Tim Walz, you're probably doing something wrong. All right, and so I think the president recognized that. That's why he made a call to the bullpen, called in his Mariano Rivera there, Tom Homan, who's a great American, called him in. And notice, Pedro, how a lot of that stuff just kind of went away
gives
overnight.
A mean hug.
Did you notice that? Because an adult was actually in charge.
And now with Mark Wayne Mullen being tapped as potential Homeland Security, what do you think he faces should he take that position?
I think the number one thing he faces is he has to project consistency and strength. And this goes back to your other point about the Iran war. And this is why I said these things are connected from a domestic policy standpoint. The one thing that will erode support faster on our side than anything else, because of how big of an issue immigration has become in the last decade. And the president has ridden that issue all the way to the White House now. That was the issue. I was here in Iowa as he was scuffling to establish his first presidential campaign bona fides early in that 2016 cycle. And he was struggling to come up with an issue that captured people's imaginations. And it was that spring and summer of 2015 when he realized what a hot burner issue immigration was. And so that is the president's signature issue of his entire political relevancy and ascendancy. And so if it turns out we have a whole bunch of sleeper cells here they could not contain, and there are casualties here at home because of what we've allowed to be imported and not removed, that has way more potential to divide the president's base than what you're seeing from a handful of largely anti-Israel podcasters online who are kind of using and almost hoping and wishing that this that Operation Epic Fury goes poorly so they can say, see, I told you so. There's way more danger in what happens on the domestic front with sleeper cells and domestic terrorism here, if not adequately contained and dealt with, than that in terms of eroding his support. And so it was paramount now to put an adult in charge of DHS during this particular point of time right now.
We have calls lined up.
All right, freeze it.
That's the soul of the entire appearance right there. The pointing out that it, and people who are frustrated maybe with your Iran answer and but lasted long enough, did the Leo gif and pointed to that. And that's why I'm frustrated, because absolutely Trump told me who he was at the beginning. I'm going to hold him to that. And if we're going to go over to Iran and forget about this stuff, it's never going to fly.
Mm-hmm.
And we all understand that. We totally think that's valid. That right there is the soul of everything you said before. And quite frankly, what gives people ears to hear with whatever happens afterwards, because that acknowledges the honesty of where people are at right now.
Yes. Ultimately, that's the big ticket. People will allow you to conquer any country you want to overseas, so long as the bad guys on our shores are actually taken back overseas. That's kind of the gist of where we're at right now.
Before we continue on, folks, if another major disruption happens, you can't get to the store, how long do you think you're going to last out there? How long do you think you can trust the authorities out there? That's why you want to check out our friends at My Patriot Supply. They are America's #1 preparedness company with over 3 million satisfied customers, and I'm one of them. After what happened in North Carolina a few years ago, I finally just said, listen, man, I mean, if that can happen to those salt of the earth folks, how vulnerable is a schmuck like me? All right, so I've got basically my My Patriot Supply shed now at the house for the next time. That can never happen here. Happens here again. All right, including the food kits, the food supply, the 4-week emergency food supply, 2,000 calories a day, real meals made with real ingredients, no artificial flavors or colors, stays fresh with proper storage, like in my shed for over 20 years. So you're ready to go. Just in case. Go to preparewithdace.com right now. Get a free week of emergency food today. You can do that right now. Get a free week of emergency food today when you go to preparewithdace.com. They've got all kinds of other preparedness items there too. And I've got most of those as well. All right. Preparewithdace.com is where you want to go. That's preparewithdace.com. All right. We probably want to wait and start this call on the other side. All right. So real quick, based on how the conversation has gone so far, what kind of calls would you hope we would get based on the opening presentation of this?
Well, I would hope calls that have a sense of, I know they do don't they have the Republican and Democrat line
and independents have a line too. Yeah.
A line that at least acknowledges that there's another side of the conversation that must at least be honestly entertained from a Socratic dialogue point of view, and not pretends it's a straw man. That's what I hope.
From a content perspective,
yes.
I want angry people just.
I'm expecting that too. Yeah.
You're gonna get some of that for sure. Particularly as Todd keeps teasing.
Wait till the end.
Wait till the end. You'll get some of that at the end as well. But I really did. Number one, it's Sunday. It's the Lord's Day. Number two, this is a place, as a platform that is trying to elevate the level of conversation here. So. I was truly trying to kind of set that tone. Listen, I'm fine to just start trolling people and retardation. I can't stand if you want me to, but I just kind of felt like this was kind of a formal dinner kind of a thing. This requires a different level of decorum than we're just sitting here in our own little locker room here, right? You know, right? So we'll see if I can keep that going here when we come back.
The Steve Deace Show.
So inside this audience, we're going to have folks who track their finances, their investments, maintain their vehicles, but how often do you track what's going on inside your body? And it's not because we don't care. It's because we don't know how. I mean, that's kind of a major hassle. It's time, it's inconvenience. Sitting in waiting rooms, you get off your schedule. That's where Gevity comes in for like longevity. All right, they test your hormones, inflammation, metabolic function, nutrient deficiencies, everything. Things that actually tell you where your body's headed, not just where it's been. And they'll send a licensed person to your house, depending on where you live, to take that blood right there. All right. No waiting rooms, no scheduling headaches, if it's possible. And then a dedicated care team. Now, in my neighborhood where I live in Des Moines, they could not do that. So we had to go schedule one of the blood draw places, but they took care of that, made the appointment happen, made it as seamless as possible. And then I have worked with their dedicated care team over the last couple of weeks, walking through those results, building a protocol. I'm already a big supplement guy, but they found a couple of other things, couple of other blank spots that I wasn't sure about. And you guys know me, I'm going to check everything. So I took these guys over to, Dr. Molly over there, and she's like, yeah, I kind of agree with that. I think that's a good idea. All right, so you can now take advantage of this information. It's limited how much we can truly take control of our own health. But Gevity is one way that you can. All right, get 20% off your first blood panel right now with the code DACE. When you go to gogevity.com/DACE, Gevity, Geviti, Geviti. All right, gogevity.com/DACE. Use the code DACE for 20% off your first panel. Code DACE, 20% off at gogevity.com/DACE. All right, let's continue on this hour-long edition of Fake News or Not, looking back at my appearance on Sunday on C-SPAN. And now, gentlemen, I think we're going to start going to the phones.
First will be from New York. This is Scott, Democrats Line. You're on with Steve Deace of the Steve Deace Show. Scott, go ahead.
Yes, Steve, I'm technically still registered as a Democrat, but I'm definitely conservative at this point. I would agree with you on Kristi Noem and Pam Bondi as far as like bad choices. They were bad choices from the beginning. But I differ with you on the other generalized aspects of what you're on there for today, because most Americans, working class Americans, they are concerned with what's going on. Of course, if you can walk and chew gum at the same time with Iran and all the other stuff that's going on, worldwide. But their biggest concerns right now are how are they going to pay for the healthcare premiums and how are they going to pay for their energy costs, which have skyrocketed. And most people, when you actually ask them on the street and in private, I'm a healthcare provider, and I have conversations with my patients, sometimes just casual conversations. They don't understand that it's all state controlled. It's state commission controlled. And so I actually wrote an amendment which I was trying to get my congressman to look at, which they just have ignored it. But that needs to be taken away from the states, and it needs to be federalized, and we need to actually have Congress, for people that are elected to office, be able to raise healthcare premiums or raise energy costs. I think they should be dialed back to 2018 levels, and then in order to raise them, you have to have a supermajority in Congress to do that. That's what most people are concerned with. Their healthcare premiums that have gotten out of control because of state-run commissions, like in New York State, the Department of Financial Services.
Got it. Yep. Thank you, caller. Thank you.
Well, first of all, I think his political assessment is correct. I mean, one of the biggest mistakes that the Republican Party has made, maybe in its modern history, are the infamous 50-plus show votes to abolish Obamacare in order to gain majorities, and then when they had the power to do so, not doing so. And then they ended up owning. And then if you remember, Pedro, the very first attempt, I guess, to repeal Obamacare under Speaker Paul Ryan was essentially a fulfillment of every Democrat campaign commercial that's ever existed. They were going to get rid of the corporate mandate and then make sure the individual still had theirs. All right. And that was one of the biggest issues in the 2018 midterms. You go back and look at the exit polling of the 2018 midterms when we lost 40 House seats. Healthcare was the number one issue. And so what ended up happening now is the Republican Party, by its failure to live up to its own campaign rhetoric on Obamacare, has ended up owning the liability of this issue. They've taken it on themselves. Now, in terms of the solution, though, to what he is saying, I mean, I don't know. I'm having a hard time. Forgive me. It's Sunday Sunday morning, brother. Pedro, I want to be, listen, it's the Lord's Day, so I want to be as graceful and winsome as I can be, okay? I'm just not sure anybody is really eager to hand more power to Congress at the moment, regardless of what line they're calling into, okay? So I'm not sure that's the most adequate solution in the world, but I do agree with his political lament that the Republican Party has mismanaged this issue really now for almost going on the last decade.
Yeah. I think that you gave the soul of everything before, which is still true. I think that was the best overall answer, because you did one of our favorite things. You said, "Oh, by the way, it's worse, way worse than you even
It's worse
think."
than you think.
Because we could have done something about it. These Republicans that apparently he has a new ear for a long time ago, but also your answers are not even close. That same group that when they had the power at the federal level screwed it up before. Now you want to give more power to them again. They won't. It's not going to go how you think it's going to go, Luke Skywalker. So I thought this was the best overall answer in terms of the number of roads it went down and accomplished what you intended it to do.
I didn't hear the caller. Did the caller say anything about regulations when it comes to the ACA? I don't recall him saying much about that.
No.
So there's one problem. Politically, I agree. His assessment is right on the money. But until you start doing regulations, getting rid of regulations, I don't care if you give the money directly to the people. You're just kind of rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic.
Mm-hmm.
And the overriding the overriding issue. Even if we could talk about something that would cut down on the cost of insurance premiums, Congress, do you really trust that they can do anything like this that's risky politically across the board without actually making things worse? Probably not.
From Mark. Mark is on our line for Independence. He's in Massachusetts. Mark, hello.
Morning. Thank you. Steve, I was wondering, I was at a party last night, a St. Patrick's Day party outside of Boston. It was pretty, mixed, all sorts of, kind of folks, white collar, blue collar, middle, whatever, upper class. And I didn't hear anybody talking about winning. I didn't hear anybody say, America's winning and Trump's foreign policy, like you said, is his greatest asset. I think he's doing a terrible job. Do you look at the ratings? This guy's a 30% approval rating. I mean, the elections are coming up, midterms. They're going to get smoked.
Well, first of all, let me just say the fact that you are still running with a group of people of various persuasions that are willing to hang out with one another, props to you, because there's not a lot of that anymore in our Balkanized country. So that's good that you still have a group of people that can come together and have honest conversations with one another and, not essentially, build moats around each other the minute that somebody airs a dissenting opinion. The president's approval rating heading into Iran, according to the RCP average, was 43.3. That's roughly around where Barack Obama's was at this point in his second term as well. But you're not wrong about the realities of what he is facing in a midterm. And you look at this historically, Pedro. I mean, the only time I can think of in modern history, Reagan lost over 30 House seats, several governorships in 1982 because the economy did not turn around as fast as people thought coming out of the Carter years. You look at George H.W. Bush. Democrats won the generic ballot in the 1990 midterm elections by, I think, 8 points nationwide. If you look in 1994, that was the first Republican majority in 50 years, the contract with America, in Bill Clinton's midterm. You look at George W. Bush was able to win a midterm coming off of 9/11 and 2002. But then he got annihilated in the 2006 midterms. We destroyed Barack Obama in not one but two midterm elections. And the Tea Party wave of 2010, and then the 2014 wave was even bigger than that. And then the aforementioned wave I had that the president lost 40 House seats in 2018. So there's a historic reality here, no matter who wins, of what you are facing in a midterm for sure. It's emboldened by the fact we have such a slim majority, and some of the people that are more corporatized, more globalist in our party still, that the old Bush wing that kind of hasn't been run out yet is still able to bog things down on Capitol Hill in ways that maybe you can't in some states like my home state of Iowa, where you have Kim Reynolds, or Florida, where you have Ron DeSantis and a strong Republican governor. And so your deducement here of the political realities are not wrong. But here's the reality, and this goes back to the previous caller's question. If the American people, what's affordability, Pedro, is a little subjective, like what's the degrading of Iran's military, right? Okay. If the American people do not feel that affordability at their kitchen tables coming out of Labor Day and heading into the meat of this campaign season, we're going to lose, regardless of how successful this operation was. And if they do, we're going to win, regardless of how upset about this operation people are right now in early March.
Is there enough time to change those minds, or at least change that perception?
There's 6 months. I would say you've got about 6 months, and then most of the economic environment that people are going to be feeling when they go to the polls will be in place coming out of Labor Day, which is about 6 months. In fact, it's exactly 6 months from today, I believe. And so that's how long we have, I think, on our side.
Let's go to New York.
Pedro's
State again.
opinion. Pedro's opinion about getting smoked is where a lot of people we've talked in the last week about being prepared to answer a question, walking away from a conversation. Just answer the question that you wanted to answer anyways. I mean, that was a case study of how to conduct an operation. And ultimately that guy, Pedro, is just slinking back into the woods. He's the Homer gif, because you just didn't entertain him emotionally. You just factually overwhelmed the conversation.
Let's continue.
Republican line, go ahead.
Yeah, good morning. I'm a result of I signed up for the military because of the bombing of Beirut, and served with a lot of guys from middle class, lower middle class, and just seems like the same old thing. And after say we do great here in Iran, I'm all about against Iran, but after this is all said and done, you can see Mike and Lockerbie bombing airlines, killing military guys, and also I'm not giving credit to Hegseth or Trump because I don't believe they should get the credit for our military. I don't give the credit to Clinton or any of them guys. It's just serve with a bunch of amazing guys and serve with guys in NATO. And I think it's sad. And I think the people who are going to benefit are the wealthy. And obviously Israel, who I always been an ally of Israel, it's just, I don't know. Seems like the same old story.
Okay, Dan in New York. Mr. Deace, a lot said there. What do you take from that?
Well, I think I'm trying to figure out what his question was because I want to be respectful to his service, and I would love to answer directly what his question was. I will say there is a pocket of people, and a lot of them are on our side, that share a lot of his laments. And in many respects, Pedro, I thought, pardon me, I thought Midnight Hammer last year was kind of Trump's, pardon me, I thought it was his Grenada. And coming into the Reagan years, there was a lot of thought coming out of Vietnam that we just could not exert and project power anymore as a military, particularly after the failed, botched attempt to rescue the hostages under Jimmy Carter, et cetera. And so Grenada was kind of Reagan's the first salvo that no we could do this again. We're not permanently emasculated here. And I thought Midnight Hammer did that in terms of the morale for the military for the president. But we're now undergoing a second proof of concept here, and I don't lament to anybody that's our age that has lived through all these years, any of the millennials who feel like maybe they fought in Iraq and Afghanistan for nothing given the way that things turned out. I don't lament that on anybody, and I don't think the president does. I mean, remember, the president got elected, Pedro, running on many of these kinds and itemizing and elevating these kinds of complaints and being kind of a construct for people that he represented something different. And so he's proven that with his success in foreign policy. He proved that with the success of Midnight Hammer a year ago. But now we're at another stage of this. Can we have a prolonged engagement? And what's prolonged? Well, it's already been a week. In our 15, in our 280 characters or less society, that's a long time. Okay, we're pronouncing movies bombs based on their 1 week of box office nowadays. Okay, so so can he prove that he can sustain this and success for a prolonged engagement? And I just want to say about Secretary Hegseth, his messaging has been phenomenal. I mean, he has put on an absolute messaging and morale clinic thus far. But ultimately, and that's buying them time. But ultimately, the proof will be in the results. And so we're undergoing a proof of concept as a people right now. So the first one was last year. Can we do quick strike events and not get bogged down in prolonged engagements? And now we're proving whether or not it is capable with different leadership to be involved in a prolonged engagement without getting bogged down in a quagmire. And that proof of concept still has to be proven. And I don't begrudge anybody who is skeptical until it is.
Mr. Deace, you talked about midterms. A lot of attention was paid last week to the first round of primaries, particularly what happened in the Texas Senate race. What's your assessment of what finally broke out after everything was said and done?
Well, John Cornyn may have spent more money in the history of politics to get 42% in a statewide primary. I don't know that. I mean, that's got to be one of the worst return on investments in the entire history of modern American politics, number one. And so there is, as you know, a lot of drama about this on our side right now because the president put out a message the day after the primary saying, in short, I'm going to be issuing an endorsement. And it began getting leaked, I think, first to The Atlantic and to some other media that the president was going to endorse John Cornyn. And then what we saw is maybe this was the largest.
Because we're coming up on the end of the show, actually. So we're going to finish this in the overtime. Great tease to become a Blaze TV subscriber because you don't want to miss the last call. Todd's been teasing this the entire time. You do not want to miss the last caller. In fact, I totally forgot about this call. And this actually is one of my favorite answers that I gave because I hearkened back to a name I'd not let purse my lips in many a moon. But what happened last week reminded me quite a bit to that moment. So if you are a Blaze TV subscriber, you're golden, right? You just need to wait for us to record this right after the show, and then you'll get to watch that later on today at Blaze TV. If you're not yet, become one now. BlazeTV.com/Deace is where you can go. You don't want to miss the overtime. You don't want to miss Todd and Aaron declaring whether or not I'm fake news based on this appearance or not. All right, that's going to be all done today and every day. That's just one of the exclusive pieces of content that gets produced daily for subscribers at BlazeTV.com/Deace. Use the code DACE for a discounted subscription, blazetv.com/Deace, code DACE. Before we get out of here, one word assessment for what you guys saw, at least during this period of time from this appearance.
Sober.
That's an interesting word. Sober.
Adult.
Yeah, I meant adult. I was striving for adult. And sober is probably another way of saying that. Yeah. I mean, I was striving to show these can be discussed like adults and seriously. And if C-SPAN isn't the format to have a serious conversation, then we just don't have one anymore, right? All right, overtime for subscribers coming your way. For the rest of you, we'll see you tomorrow. You don't want to miss that last call, trust me. Go hard, Romans 8:28.